It just so happens that nothing is by happenstance, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then we know that we're in perfect alignment with the universe, with God, or what have you,
Mm-hmm.
when things come back to tell you you're right. So as you just are speaking about family and generations and to grow, so on and so forth. Well, I was listening to Sarah Jakes Roberts just this
Mm-hmm.
morning. Um, and she was talking about the different generations that are currently in the Potter's house, right? And the eldest person was 104. And then, of course, I'm sure it went down to, maybe some of the babies. So she started naming off the different generations and what they were called, So
Mm-hmm.
it was
Mm-hmm.
the generation that got it right, all the way down to the Gen Z and then the Alpha. And she just kind of broke it down. But what she said that was so powerful, like what you're saying right now, is that we need these generations and we need us pretty much in one area so that we know what
Mm-hmm.
God looks like.
Mm.
While we know that God is unchangeable, we know that God shows up for us at different times in life in a different way. So by
Mm.
seeing how God worked through these different generations, only then can we truly understand our history and where we're going or where the future has taken us to that part. So it's so important to have generational wealth. And I don't mean
Mm.
like monetary, but
Right.
love and life and, balance. That's so important.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. I love that. When we talk about history and the importance of history, and, people often say you have to know your history to know your future, or you have to know your history to remember what you will and won't accept ever again. And when I think about a 104-year-old person, right, who's lived through the Great Depression, who's lived through all of these different diseases, the Spanish flu, and all of these other, things that have taken out millions of people, there's a level of resilience there.
For
And
sure.
that resilience that we see in a 104-year-old or even an 80-year-old, or
Yeah.
90-year-old who's like, girl, you think you're going through something? Keep
Right.
living. Just keep
Right.
living, right? And when we put that into perspective, I was watching something recently and they were like, this generation, I'm a millennial,
Mhm.
and I really do feel like that generation, our generation, was very much like isolated in this bubble to believe
Mhm.
in fairy tales, to believe that if you do good work, good things will happen to you. If you
Right. Right.
like, there's this whole illusion that we were raised to believe would be the case. Meanwhile, people from earlier generations who were closer to that Jim Crow, closer to, again, Great Depression, all of that, who have come out of like really tough environments, they're
Mhm.
looking like, girl, you're living in a fantasy. Do you know what really goes on in this world?
For
Like, do you
sure.
know the levels of like wickedness that happens in
For
this world?
sure.
And it wasn't until recently where I really encountered that. And I'm like, wow, it took almost 40 years for me to really realize what was going on in this world. And I think back to your point about like being around the elders, it keeps you grounded, it
For
keeps
sure.
you humble, it keeps you connected for sure. But I just can really appreciate that life. I know you've interviewed our granny. I've interviewed a great grandmother when she was 100 years old on my
Mhm.
mom's side, and there's just so much. There's like
It
infinite
is.
wisdom. Yeah.
Granny used to say, she used to say, because I might be talking about the doctor or something, right? And she'll say, they ain't lived long enough to tell me nothing. And I used to always think that she was talking about age. And I kid you not, it was just a few short years ago, as other things were going on, right? And people were wanting to make decisions and, just different stuff that was happening.
Hmm.
Well, at that point, something went off in my head. You haven't lived long enough, not age wise, but you ain't seen enough yet to tell
Right.
me what to do. You ain't seen enough to know how to truly care for me. You ain't seen enough. And just because I give it to you does not make you what's the word, not fit, um it doesn't make you experienced
Qualified.
enough, qualified.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. That's the word that I was looking for. It doesn't make you qualified yet to handle it. And so
Yeah.
when she said that to me, as you just the same as you were speaking, you know, you haven't lived long enough, meaning that you don't know
Right.
what it took to get from Louisiana to California,
Right.
to sundown towns. You don't know what it was like to travel, you know, with separation and to say, I can stop here safely or I got to keep going. So let me make sure
Right.
I have enough gas. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like you haven't lived long enough. And while, you know, we know that there are marital issues and, you know, relationship issues for all ages, right? But you haven't really lived long enough to know the importance of all the rights that we truly have today
Mm.
and how they just came maybe 50, 60 years ago. You ain't
Yeah.
lived long enough to tell me
You ain't
nothing.
lived long enough. And
And
how we're
by
so close to them
yeah,
being taken
it's
away, right?
by
Like,
grace. Yeah. Like it's by
yeah.
grace that, you know, we allow people to give us instructions. It's by
Mm-hmm.
grace, you know, that we
Yeah.
know that we're capable of doing that. So yeah, thank you for that.
Absolutely.